It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. If it looks like a Thursday and walks like a Thursday, it's probably a Thursday. Gary, how are you?
Good, just chuckling, reading a couple of articles here. And but whenever I laugh, I say, okay, I got to bring that on the show.
All right.
And this was David Harzeni from thefederalist.com. All right, here it goes.
All right.
Ronna McDaniel, former chair of the Republican National Committee, was recently hired and then fired by NBC News when the talent, unable to put up with even moderate dissent, revolted on air. But one of the funniest moments of the McDaniel blow-up at NBC News came when former White House press secretary Jen Psaki, another political operative hired by the network, argued that the distinction between her and McDaniel was truth versus lies. What the holy hell is she talking about? Because only last week, Psaki was lying about Donald Trump's bloodbath comment, which every sentient being understands was a metaphor for economic collapse, not, as the NBC host explained, an embrace of political violence or dehumanizing language. Mm-hmm. And let's set aside the election denialism of 2016, which she claimed was rigged by Russia.
Yeah.
Psaki is proficient in lies big and small, whether she's spreading run-of-the-mill lies about how Democrats don't support abortion until birth, almost all do, or whether she's telling the press that Biden's dog Major had not bitten Secret Service officers. He's bitten them 24 times at least, or she's spreading hoaxes about Border Patrol agents whipping Haitian migrants. Psaki is a wellspring of misinformation. Wow. She excels at it. When Democrats were campaigning to cram through that massive welfare cronyism expansion agenda, first named Build Back Better, then later the Inflation Reduction Act, she told the media that no economist in the country was predicting higher inflation because of massive government spending. We know that wasn't true. Biden at least had the decency to contend that a serious economist was warning of disaster. Of course, numerous respected economists, including well-known Democrats, had warned that injecting trillions into a hot economy would cause inflation, as Psaki well knew. She made her claim in November of 2021. A month earlier, inflation has risen at its fastest level since 1990. During the Biden administration's deadly botching of the Afghan withdrawal, which saw 13 American servicemen murdered at Abbey Gate outside of the international airport, Psaki said, when the administration, tied to a political timeline, ignored warnings from intelligence officials what the terrorists were taking advantage of unsecured paths that the U.S. was encouraging civilians to use to get to the airport, Psaki bragged that all American citizens, Afghan partners, and allies were being rescued. When someone asked her how many Americans had been left behind in the country, she indignantly told them it was irresponsible to say Americans are stranded. But they were right. John Kirby, the Pentagon spokesperson, flippantly told the press only days later, we have Americans that get stranded in countries all the time. Everybody knew Jen Psaki was lying. Later, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee found that as many as 9,000 Americans were left in Afghanistan during the Biden administration's disastrous withdrawal. An NGO report found that the U.S. left behind 78,000 Afghan allies in the chaotic withdrawal. And then it just goes on and on and on and on and on to talk about, the lies. But I was just, because you and I said the same thing. It was when she said it, it was humorous. And the same thing with, what's his name? Oh, I can't think of his name.
Chuck Todd?
Yeah, Chuck Todd.
Yeah, it's, a bunch of whiners because they don't want to. And here's the thing. Of all of the people on the right, and I don't know that Ronna McDaniel is on the right. I can't tell you. If you have any questions, just look at Michael Steele. Of all the people on the right, she's not the one to be afraid of.
No.
That would have been a cakewalk.
Not at all.
In fact, when the headline came out, NBC hires Ronna McDaniel, I was like, well, that's the perfect place. I'm assuming she's going to have her own show at MSNBC. That's what I thought. I thought, well, they see that she belongs there. After a long time of conservatives believing that she belongs there. Oh, no, we can't have anyone. No. You know why? Because they would have to introduce her every time as the former head of the RNC. And that is just too painstaking for them to have to mention every time they introduce her. Now, it means diddly and squat.
Well, they don't. Do they introduce Michael Steele that way?
I don't think anymore. But they would in the first few months of her being on there. That would have been the case. And
yeah, they're just
because that's her. That would be her only credibility. Look, nobody knows who Ronna McDaniel is, so you're going to have to explain it as you introduce her. And they couldn't. There's no way they can bring themselves to say, "Oh, we've got the former head of the RNC." I wonder too if the word, because you would think, I don't know. You would just think, I mean, Chris Christie's been on CNN for how long now? I mean, since he was governor, pretty much. And you would think, I don't know, if they make a deal, it would be, look, we're going to need you to be NBC friendly, if you know what we mean here, Ronna McDaniel. You're going to have to, we need to make sure that you're in our corner. Maybe not, or maybe that conversation happens somewhere along the way, and it's like, nah, she's going to say whatever she wants. And, of course, Chuck Todd can't quit crying because he's a child. It's just laughable. It really is. The whole thing is laughable because at the end of the day, it means nothing.
Look, this is an election, issues versus January 6th.
Yep.
That's it. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And Democrats can't debate any of the issues.
No.
Any of the major issues that America cares about, the Democrats can't debate it. They don't want to deal with anyone who will bring up an issue right now because they know. Chuck Todd knows, Jen Psaki knows, Mika knows. Joe does whatever Mika says and thinks whatever Mika thinks, so he knows that they cannot debate on any of the issues, and they panic when anybody else is brought on. It's like, hey, I don't get to watch The Five often, but Jessica Tarlov is on there, and she had to make the apology last week to Tony Bobulinski because she lied about something. But they, it's like whether it was Bob Beckel or Geraldo Rivera, the conservatives are going to pound on him. It's like, yeah, we want that.
Yeah.
Democrats are completely the opposite. Democrats have no confidence that they can debate on any issues any major issue where the Democratic Party stands right now.
Well, it's you have to look at it for what it is. If you believe you're right, if you believe that you're justified in your positions, you welcome bringing on anybody from the opposition. Man, bring it on. Can I get her on my show first? Can I do the whole hour with her? Bring it. But they don't do that. And you have to ask yourself why. It's because they don't want to have a debate. They don't want to have questions thrown back at them. They don't want to do that.
No, they can't do it.
They want to go along with whatever the narrative is, or in the case of Scarborough, whatever his wife tells him.
Yep. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Joe Yes, dear. Joe, yes, dear Scarborough.
That's right.
And we say that, by the way, just in case people, don't know this, and we always make sure that we throw this in. Joe Scarborough was once viewed as a conservative Republican. He was the representative over one of the most conservative districts in the United States in Northwest Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we say it. He's changed every major opinion as an adult.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz holds that seat, for those that don't know, currently.
Yes. So a lot of people don't. I think I said it yesterday, and you did too in our pre-show meeting. We're getting to be so old that we just know things, and people say, well, you're really smart. No, we're old.
Yeah, no, someone asked me that the other day. It was something, and I just popped out the answer. And they were like, how do you know that? I was like, I've just been around for a while.
And for me, one of the most cringe-worthy moments I've ever seen at a political convention was Philadelphia, the Republican convention in Philadelphia in 2000, where early in the afternoon, Joe Scarborough got up there with his band, and they weren't good.
That always goes good.
Yeah, it wasn't good. But I always, the two things I remember from that. Well, actually, there's three things. There's that. There's The Rock walking all around, and everybody, it's The Rock, it's The Rock, it's The Rock, it's The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had it was the only encounter I ever had with Jon Stewart. We talked for about 10 minutes as we were walking someplace. And then it was, and it's interesting because it came back up again, the school lunch program. Biden wants to make it so everybody, every rich district, the school lunch program applies to everybody, getting the subsidized lunch. And that's when I had my debate with Paul Begala, who had no idea how the school lunch program went.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that one. And then it's also, I believe, where I met Mark Levin the first time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Those are the things I remember.
Right.
But that was just Scarborough. It's important for people to know, because people don't know it. They have no idea. I mean, that was 2000. That's almost a quarter of a century ago.
Yeah, that was a whole other marriage ago for him. I'm not wrong.
We got a ton of things to talk about.
We do.
And a perfect. And I've got this. I saw this story yesterday, and I didn't even want to tell you about it because it's not a major story on a major issue. Yeah. But it's how the media, and this would be the liberal media because it came out of Business Insider, tries to put out a shocking article in the rating, and this time the rating of airports, and how long you have to walk from check-in to the gate. And just wait till you see how they put this thing together, because it is the most bizarre thing. It's like, let's put it this way. The longest, they say the longest walk is Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yeah, we call it the Green Mile.
The Dallas-Fort Worth, and it's the longest walk of any airport, with 2.16 miles between check-in and their gates. It's completely false.
Are they saying on the average, or if you have to walk to another terminal?
Well, I mean, that's what they're saying. Like if you check in a different terminal and decide to walk instead of taking the tram all around, if you decide to walk, that the airport's so big, you could walk 2.16 miles. But the way they write it is, passengers at Dallas-Fort Worth International have the longest walk of any U.S. airport, with 2.16 miles between check-in and their gates.
Oh, wait, hold on. We want people to believe that. Yeah, stop coming to DFW Airport. You should, because it's a long walk. You should go to another airport. That's garbage. By the way,
I know it's like we need to make something that's controversial, and these are the airports with the longest walk. Yeah, but nobody's walking. They've got transportation.
Flying
systems.
out to Louisville last week on Wednesday, they said we're moving. We were at D something, and we're moving to C something. I thought, okay, well, we're going to go up and get on the tram. We got up and walked across, and I don't know. I guess it was a Skyway. It wasn't that long of a walk, but we never got on a tram and came down in C. And I still don't know how we did that. Is that that must be part of the construction?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, we went from D terminal to C, and we actually did walk.
Well, you can walk if you want.
Right, but this was going over, I mean, it didn't seem like it was all the way down. Like if you drive, it's a long, long distance. It wasn't that long of a distance. I almost always have to take a tram when they change terminals.
Or to go from D to C, you're crossing the bridge.
Right. This didn't even seem like we were crossing the bridge is the point. I mean, it seemed like really short, like really there.
Well,
and it must have been because
they got the people.
We were on one side of D and the same side of C, basically an adjacent side of C. But I've never changed terminals and walked that short of a distance.
Yeah, I know
before.
that's the bridge with the people movers that go over. I've been on that a couple times, but and that was just because I figured, but that's not 2.16 miles.
No, I wasn't making that point. I was saying it actually was very short, and we were walking and we were changing terminals. That was my point.
Yeah, so it's just stupid article. Yeah. I just wanted to bring that because it's just like, stop it. Stop making something that, it possibility you could walk it. Well, yeah, but people don't. No. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It's not always easy to spring back from the harsh days of winter to warmer months ahead. From de-icing chemicals to hidden debris underneath snow and ice, winter conditions can do serious damage to your truck. Here's a must-do maintenance check to help you minimize downtime and stay rolling. Make sure your fluids are at proper levels ahead of spring. Fluid is to trucks what blood is to the human body. Low fluid can be just as harmful as no fluid, and the damage this will cause to your truck is unavoidable. Pay attention to your engine oil, coolant levels, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, brake fluid, and differential fluid.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Some analysis on the Senate coming up here in a little bit. Also, I was just reading this article here. Publishers, here's the headline. Breaking. Simon & Schuster withdraws contract for major book about Biden's presidency after lack of market interest.
Yeah, they're going forward, true story, with a book about the White House cat by Jill Biden. True story.
No.
So there's no interest in a Joe Biden book, but the White House cat gets a book. Say that out loud a few times.
You mean the dog hasn't eaten the cat yet?
Tried.
I just love it. Publisher Simon & Schuster has terminated a contract with Alex Thompson, Axios' national political correspondent, for a book centered on President Joe Biden's administration, signaling a challenging market for Biden-related literature.
And from the Associated Press just about a half hour ago, Jill Biden wrote a children's book about her White House cat, Willow, that will be published in June.
Oh, man, there's
you
so
can't
many
make
places
this up.
So many places I could go.
You can't make this up. This is the Biden White House right here. We got no interest in Joe. Is there anything else? There's a White House cat. Yes! We're doing a book on the cat.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And good morning. Did you see the new rule in the NFL for kickoffs?
No, I was busy trying to pre-order Joe Biden's book about a cat. It's not on pre-order yet.
You know how
Darn
they
it.
how they kicked off from the 30-yard line?
Right.
And and everybody goes down. Well, now the kicker will stand alone at the 30-yard line, and everybody, rushing down the field will be at the other team's 40-yard line. They'll be 30 yards in front of the kicker. And it's so they can't get a lot of speed and injure the kicker and injure because they have so much. It's the most dangerous, as they've said, the most dangerous play in football because you're running 50, 60 yards and you've got a head of steam coming up when you hit that other person. And so they're making it where you kick off, but your teammates are 30 yards in front of you. So when everybody hits each other, they're only got maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 yards to hit, the people that are in the wedge or whatever, or maybe 20 yards, but not 50 or 60 yards.
Right. So it's not going to be as fun. Okay.
No, it's going to be weird to look at. I'm just like, whatever.
Well, I mean, I joke about it being fun, not being fun for the players, but I mean, if you don't have a running start, what is it gonna be? You know what I mean? It's like you
electric football.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be flag football, or touch football, or as we call it now, grope football. It's not gonna be. If you're not. The idea is, you gotta take out some players. But if we're gonna do that, then I think that when they line up, when any team is trying to move the ball forward on the line of scrimmage, right? The opposing team, the defense line, has to be 20 yards down because it would help quarterbacks, right?
Oh,
it would take a long. I mean, if it saves just one concussion, it would be worth it.
Well,
it
would actually make concussions worse.
Well, it would take them longer to get to the quarterback. The quarterback would have a lot more time.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the quarterback to be getting the concussion. It would be the offensive line hitting the defensive lineman or the linebackers.
Well, nobody cares about. We only care about quarterbacks. Nobody does books on concussions of offensive linemen.
Well, then you can't tackle a quarterback. Everybody else plays tackle, and the quarterback has a flag.
That's the next.
Put a flag.
Next natural progression.
Here's a question I have: 50 years from now, we'll both be gone. But 50 years from now,
I'll be 108. I'll be fine.
Will they?
I'll be just fine.
Will they eliminate completely tackling? And will anybody pay a $100,000 personal seat license to watch flag football or touch football?
Well, let's combine fantasy football and actual football, and I think we're getting closer to that point. And now throw in AI. No humans involved at all.
Madden football.
Robots are going to get $30 million contracts per season.
Everything is Madden AI.
Yeah. Yeah. And it will, because, the wagering now it's a thing, so then the wagering will determine and fans can determine, and, you got to support your virtual quarterback. Otherwise, he won't have enough, virtual points, energy to get through a game.
The best thing is that California Angels pitcher, that the whole gambling thing, the whole gambling scandal that's going on,
right? And
him and his interpreter, we're talking about the Japanese player, Otani, and our great friend of the show, I mean, really great friend of the show, Daryl Parks, who used to be the program director at WLW.
Yeah, right.
And he's now, he's retired and living in Buffalo, but he posted this yesterday, and it was great. It was about the whole situation there about gambling in baseball.
Right.
And it's like there's a guy, Jeff, it looks like on X, who wrote this. This is the best ever. Because of it's a whole gambling scandal, and they're trying to figure out what the truth is. Welcome back to Sports Center, presented by ESPN Bet. For more on the Ohtani situation, we go to our FanDuel Major League Baseball insider, Jeff Passion, at our DraftKings studio in Los Angeles, brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. Jeff, how could something like this happen?
Well, you and I have looked at it and said, look, why? I mean, the whole Pete Rose thing. Yeah. Why? Pete Rose now would, these days would have 2 major, 3 major, 4 major contracts. I mean, if we're moving in that direction, you and I talked about it with the whole steroids in baseball. Man, that goes back a while. Wow. Yeah. Right. And
Sammy Sosa.
Yeah. And so it was like, all right. Well, my thought was, no, let's do a full-on steroids league. Like 40-inch arms coming out there. And just the arms. Only the arms are 40-inch. The legs are normal.
Oh, wait.
Huh?
I'm kidding here. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah.
If men can now play women's sports, then can women then legally do steroids in order to compete with the man?
We asked that question because if we're talking about the difference in the hormones and that if there is no standard that says with any league or organization, whether it's a collegiate league or a professional organization or whatever it is, if there's not to be any standard where it says, okay, you've got to prove that, at this point that you don't have a much higher rate of even naturally of male hormones if you're transgender and playing in a female league and blah, blah, blah. You're trying to even out the field if you were going to go that way. Well, otherwise, you could go the other direction and say, ladies, go at it. And, we've had this conversation about also the betting and everything else going on in professional sports. You're promoting it all the presentation is filled with the promotion of it. And yet it's such a scandal. And I understand the difference between fans and players.
Right.
I get that.
Exactly right.
And there is most definitely a conflict of interest. And we've seen that come to a head. We've seen that conflict of interest play out when it wasn't done on the up and up. And all that's great. But what if we just said, okay, forget it all? Everybody just go out. Steroids, betting, drinking.
I have friends who sit on their phone, and they don't bet a lot, but they bet on, because you can bet anything now almost on sports.
Right.
I don't get it. And again, people have gambling addictions, and I'm not saying the people that I know do, but I've never had any interest except when I was in my late 20s, and I used to have somebody come up with the idea. I used to have Friday night poker games at my house.
I gamble. I have an interest in gambling.
Nickel and dime stuff.
I don't get the sports betting. I don't get the fantasy league stuff.
Yeah, I just don't. I just don't get any interest in gambling at all. I mean,
I do.
There's just no urge at all to do it.
Yeah, I play all the time. Yeah. It's just I don't get the fantasy league thing. The picking this player and picking. It's for me. I get the idea of squares. Remember when you used to do office squares?
Yeah.
It's like, all right,
that was fun. Yeah,
I get, just a basic, all right, or betting on a team. All right, I bet this team. But the sports thing, the sports gambling is a whole other creature. It's, all right, we're going to, which is interesting because what are you doing? You're hedging your bets by, all right, we got to know which players are healthy. We got to know how this team does during this part of the season or on the road or blah, 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 new coach, and all these things are factored in that changes it. And, man, that's too much math. You know what I mean?
So you're just a pull a lever kind of guy?
Well, no. The thing is about gambling, and that's my point. While investing is a gamble of sorts, if you're an investor, you're a gambler. You're taking a risk. Well, but if you're going to do a calculated risk, it would be, in my opinion, on something like that would be a long-term play.
Well, I guess if you talk about, you can say investing is gambling, but the percentage of people that benefit of a positive return are way greater than the gambling industry.
Well, sure, but
it
it's
may
still
not,
a risk.
It may not be as great.
Yeah, my point is that
right.
it's a calculated risk, and if you're looking at calculated risks in sports betting, well, there's a much better game for that. And that would be the calculated risk that you do.
When I spent 2 weeks in Vegas, and I was working, but I spent a quarter. That was it. I went to a one-arm bandit, threw in a quarter. I walked around, and once they knew I was staying in the hotel, they didn't bother me. A few people came up. They go, "Are you gambling?" I said, "No, I'm walking around. I'm staying here. I'm working." Oh, okay. There was no. And then I found out.
Why did they ask you that?
Because I was just walking around looking.
Yeah, people do that all the time. That's weird. They would ask.
They came up. It was a smaller hotel, smaller casino. Yeah, they came up. One guy came up and said, "Can we help you?" I said, "I'm just staying here. I'm just looking around. I really don't gamble, but I'm staying here." He goes, "Oh, okay, no problem at all. It's fine."
Right.
And
and
then I met some people. I met a server and a bartender who were both from Buffalo. So then I had no problem. It's happened like the first day, and I was just standing watching and whatever, and somebody came up to me. So maybe I looked suspicious back then.
Yeah, probably.
But I was.
Were you taking pictures?
No.
Yeah, because if you're taking pictures of other people gambling, that's frowned upon. Most houses will say no.
No, but I was.
You can take pictures like if you were to win something or someone won something and you took a picture of that. But if you're walking around, family member of mine was in a high roller room and came across the cast of The Sopranos and went to take a picture, and the security walked up and grabbed the camera and said no.
Whoa.
No.
No, I was just, I went to the blackjack table and I was whispering in the players' ears.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Actually, I've done that. I've done that with my wife. She was at a table, and you're allowed to do that. I mean, you can't see their other, it wasn't blackjack, it was another game. You can't look at somebody else's hand because you can't see that. You don't have that kind of access. But on another game, I was advising, and as long as I'm not sitting at the table doing that, it's fine.
Yeah, I get too upset at my teams when they lose. I don't need to lose money as they lose. I don't need that double whammy in sports betting.
Yeah, no, that's probably a big part of it for me. It's like, it's a lot of calculation going into that, and then still any given injury could take you out.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, wow, we can bring up The View today.
Okay.
The View had a guest on, a black author, who was talking about race and saying exactly what Bill Maher was saying the other day. We need to stop bringing up race.
Right, yeah.
Got to stop it.
Yeah.
You have to, and we've said this. I've been saying it now, let me see, 34 years and 7 months almost.
Right, yeah. Morgan Freeman said it. Bill Maher was
said it. Many. He went through other black authors that said, no, we have to eliminate race. We can't focus on it. And so this guest was talking about it. Oh my! And they hit him with, well, some people basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, basically are saying you're a tool of the right. Well, who are the some people? That's you saying it.
Yeah,
we'll get to that coming up, because it was just like, he goes, no. I'm only voted for Democrats.
Yeah, right.
Because I would vote for a Republican, but I've never voted for a Republican. And the guy said, and I'm not a Trump supporter.
Right.
And he said, but in order to stop this, and they were just like, you could tell they wanted to attack him and they just couldn't. But it shows, as we've said, the racism of identity politics.
Yeah, right.
You're black, you have to think this way, otherwise you're a tool of the right. You cannot have independent thought as a black man.
And the left can't stop talking about it. They can't stop talking about it. They have to talk about it because it's the only thing they have.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Okay, it's Red Eye Radio.
No, seriously, it's a book about a cat.
We're doing a show here, Gary. By the way, the show was interrupting our lively discussion on a variety of issues during the top of the hour, and all of a sudden I hear the music, and it's like, you put on your headphones.
Yeah.
Stop laughing. You have a serious show to do.
That's right. Straighten up. Fly right, would you?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right. What day is it? Oh,
I don't know.
Hey.
Thursday, I guess.
Hey, Alan, go in the refrigerator. Get us a couple of beers. There's still beers in the refrigerator.
Is there still beer in there? I haven't looked.
Yeah, it's still in there.
You came in the other day, and there was beer in the fridge. And here's the thing. Is it a 12-pack? It's
12-pack,
okay.
but there's like 4 or 5 cans gone.
All right.
And
so,
it's Coors Light.
All right. So.
Or Miller Lite.
I knew it was open. I didn't count them. I knew it was open. So we've had part of the building, another organization that occupies part of the another part of the building, was having a lot of remodeling done.
Right.
I'm assuming it's the construction crew, but do construction crews drink beer on the job?
Yeah, we want to make it clear we share the kitchen and the refrigerator.
Right.
With other organizations that aren't a part of our company.
Right. We have one central kitchen area, and kind of it's also a mailroom, and it's one little common area, that and the bathrooms. And I just thought, okay, I guess when they finish a job or when they finish on Friday or or are there lawyers from Law and Order here in the building now? No, that would be whiskey.
Now, is it our sales department? Are they?
No, they leave to drink. They don't stay here.
Oh, okay, yeah. Nobody wants to drink at work.
Yeah, they don't do anything in the building. In fact,
but it's always interesting when you open up. You open up the refrigerator and like, there's beer in the refrigerator.
Yeah, it was weird.
How did this happen?
That's only happened in the 27 years I've been here. That particular incident with type of incident with alcohol has only happened once. Now, we did have sponsors. I think you and I mentioned it. I don't know if it happened the same year. A sponsor left me a huge bottle of Crown Royal. I don't drink Crown Royal, but someone left me a huge bottle of Crown Royal in the control room. So when I came in that night, is sitting there with my name on it.
Well, it was a couple of weeks after there was a memo that went around, and I don't know what happened. I can't remember, but it was like, no alcohol on the premises.
Right, yeah.
And it was probably a couple of weeks before, Christmas, maybe a month before Christmas. I remember seeing the memo, and it's like, well, somebody must have, and I didn't know who was, what I didn't know what it related to.
Right.
It doesn't apply to me. And
Yeah.
I walk into the studio, and there's like a basket of hard liquor wine. There's like all the crosses, like, Gary, this is for you. I'm like, well, wait a minute. There's a memo over there. No alcohol allowed.
Right.
And all this alcohol sitting there. Hey, all these clients, these are gifts for you.
Yeah.
I go, why did they choose alcohol?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could they not give me
I don't know. I
gold
guess,
or money or cash?
Cash would be fine.
I would have taken cash.
Cash would be fine.
We really appreciate what you've done for us this year, Gary. Here's a $50 bottle of alcohol.
Yeah.
Give me the cash.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you keep the receipt? I guess you can't return alcohol.
Well, the problem is nobody's ever tried.
Well, you can return alcohol in a different kind of way, but that's not what I mean. But it's I don't know. I guess it was the construction crew or the remodeling crew enjoying a beer. If you do, man, if you do that every time you do a job, I mean, I'm hoping that if you do that for a living, you're busy all the time. You'd be drinking all the time, wouldn't you? It would be like Law and Order, where you just finish a day and start drinking right away. Don't even leave the office.
But they never had like light beer on Law and Order.
Oh,
And
it was always hard liquor.
It was always hard liquor.
Yeah.
And neat.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't mixing it with anything. It was always,
If I drink it, it's neat. I don't.
You know something? I have never tasted bourbon or scotch.
Yeah,
Ever.
yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the difference between. And please don't email me because I'm not saying I don't want your email. I'm saying my brain doesn't. My son, who was in the restaurant industry for a long, long time, and knows all about it. He can tell you that craft beer, everything, all of it, bourbon versus whiskey versus scotch versus single malt, this, that. He can tell you everything, and he has said it repeatedly to me. For some reason, my brain, when we're talking about the Russian collusion thing, the Russian hoax, and we're explaining to people that don't know about it, and their eyes kind of glaze over.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that way when someone's trying to explain to me the difference between whiskey and bourbon. I have for some reason, no interest. It just goes blank.
The interesting thing is, and I talked about it, that, part of just even small commercial real estate, the brewery taco place that I used to go to, that ended up closing up business because, they were doing okay, but it was like the rent went from $2,000 for the building to $8,000. Said, we can't do that.
Yeah, right.
Impossible. You've just taken
Right.
the profit margin away from us.
Mm-hmm.
But I would only go there maybe once a month.
Right.
And I'd have to have one because was a craft beer place, IPA and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they had delicious beer. But I would always feel guilty afterwards, not from the drinking alcohol portion of it, but the carb content part of it.
Yeah.
It's like
it can be pretty rich.
Too many carbs in that. Too many carbs too. I mean, there must have been 80 grams of 100 grams of carbs in some of those beers. They're so thick.
I saw a YouTuber who is doing an endorsement for a non-alcoholic IPA.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
So there's certain food. It is once in a blue moon where it just screams at me, "Oh, you got to have a beer with this." It's rare, but there's one restaurant that I go to, and if we do takeout and bring it home, the only thing I can drink with it is a beer. I could see that in a moment like that where I don't want the alcohol, I guess. But my question is it the same? Because how they, made with Splenda and it tastes just no, it doesn't. It's a great substitute. It works if you can't have the sugar. It tastes just like. No. So my question is it the tofurkey of beer?
Yeah, I think one time I tried one of the non-alcoholic beers, and it was sort of the same question that I had for the new Roadhouse movie. Why?
Yeah. Well, no, I think the most famous one is O'Doul's. Remember the stories of Mike Pence? He would drink a 6-pack of O'Doul's. Okay, that no, seriously, it was a true story. Mike Pence on weekends
6-pack of O'Doul's.
over at 1602 Pennsylvania or wherever the vice president lives. It would.
6-pack of O'Doul's.
He had a 6-pack,
No.
and his wife talked about it. He would have a 6-pack of O'Doul's and a pizza.
No.
It's like you're trying too hard, man.
No,
if you want
at that point, I'd be like George Costanza.
Yeah.
And, wine, I drink Pepsi.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I have a friend who drinks the not Diet Coke, but the other one. What's the
Coke Zero?
Coke Zero. Like, it's like dinner, boom, Coke Zero. Whatever it is, whatever the occasion, boom, Coke Zero. So that would be, and one O'Doul's or something, okay. But a 6-pack of O'Doul's, you're trying too hard, man. Because what's the message you're sending?
I don't know.
I'm trying really hard to look like I drink, but I don't. And Mike Pence wasn't that guy. There was a Donald Trump Jr. the other day talking about picking a Veep. He wants somebody really strong and the whole thing. And he said the whole thing with Mike Pence was the balance. I don't know if balance is the right, but I guess it is. It's, one's the candidate being Donald Trump in 2016, very loud and blunt. And I don't think anyone except for his wife has heard Mike Pence's voice ever. I'm not sure if anyone can do an impression of Mike Pence because no one knows what he sounds like.
Well,
that was balance.
But they did recognize, because he said it. So they recognized what they thought was balance.
Yeah. And I was just making a joke.
And if you're asking me, well, no. I mean that's a serious. If he said that, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's a serious political point. I mean, And so you ask yourself, all right, who should Trump pick now? What is the mindset if the Trump campaign, because he's part of the campaign, if the Trump campaign knows that balance was brought there, what are they thinking they need for a vice presidential candidate now?
Well, he was alluding to, Donald Trump Jr. was alluding to somebody who was strong, and it sounded like, and I don't know if he eventually said it and the quote just didn't make it into the stories I read about it or not, but it sounds like, and what I would say is you need somebody who can run in 2028, somebody who can be strong in 2028, strong as a vice president. You're not looking for the balance this time. I mean, I guess you could say you're looking for balance. It wouldn't be the point for me as a voter, as a supporter. It would be, who's the future of the party?
Well, when I look at it, I guess the first thought that comes to my mind is this is an election about the Republicans having balance in the ticket. I don't see that. I can see that back in 2016.
Yeah, and I think that was the point he was making the other day. Is that was the point in 2016, but it's not the point now. So
now it matters for Kennedy. We talked about that, when he picked. I gotta get the article in thehill.com that was basically saying, well, now they have a good populist ticket with her. It's like, no, they have a far left candidate, and now because you really didn't hear any talk about this yesterday at all.
No.
The day after it happened, you expected there would be some buzz. There was zero buzz, except Democrats are absolutely furious at RFK Jr. for still running because they believe his vice presidential candidate now, because she's a far left liberal, has exposed who he is and will take from the Democrats.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what Republican now. If you're a Republican, I don't know. You've had to cut in half the number of people that might have considered Robert Kennedy Jr. After his vice presidential pick. Because it doesn't, but she's not him. Yeah, but it shows he's attracted to that.
Right.
You can't say that the issues don't matter.
Right.
Only if you're no labels.
Well, and we have to also look at the contingency part of it, and that is if he's not able to fulfill the job, she becomes president.
By the way, very quickly here, when I just mentioned the No Labels Party, Joe Lieberman, one of the creators of the No Label Party, dying at age 82, apparently due to complications of a fall.
From a fall.
Yeah, because you and I were talking about it yesterday, and we said, what's
about
going
the
on?
party itself.
And if they knew, and I don't know how long he has, when he fell.
I didn't see that in any of the stories.
Because we had talked about how quiet it was, and it mentioned Joe Lieberman. We had no idea yesterday, just so people know.
Yeah,
we had no idea.
We did not know anything at all. Certainly our thoughts and prayers and condolences go out to his family, but it was just out of the blue yesterday. I'm like, oh my gosh. My wife's like, what? I said, Joe Lieberman died.
I mean,
it was just.
You see, I think it was Mark Levin on Twitter said, the last Democratic moderate.
Yeah, he's the one you could say that about.
Yeah,
for sure.
The last Democratic
No, Mark
moderate.
is definitely right on that. Yep.
86690 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
After fuel, an owner-operator's second biggest variable cost is tires. To save, get as much life out of them as possible with good habits. Maintain proper inflation. It's free and easy, yet it's the highest saving maintenance you can perform on the truck. Improper inflation is by far the greatest reason tires fail early. Perform routine maintenance. If a technician can by hand initiate irregular movements in tie rod ends, kingpins, wheel bearings, and torque rods, that spells trouble. Fight irregular wear by replacing suspension components. On the steer axle, change your shocks at least as often as you change your tires. On the drive axle, replace shocks halfway through the tire's life, and when the tires are changed too. Finally, employ good driving habits. You have full control here. More conservative driving over rough surfaces helps reduce wear. Speeding, hard braking, curbing, and tight turns cause tires to wear fast. On the other hand, steady acceleration, braking, and steering can extend the life, saving a bundle. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section on the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A really interesting article written. It was an analysis by Karl Rove of the Senate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's called Democrats Will Probably Lose the Senate. Opportunities for Republicans who are defending only 11 seats this November. We'll get to it because it goes through every race and what the polling is. And you look at it, and what he's saying is that easily it'll be 52-48. And you can actually make it bigger than that. The opportunity is there for the Senate. He said the Senate candidates are better than they were before, than they were in the past couple of election cycles. And he said, now, like I said, I'll get to portions of it coming up following the bottom of the hour. But he basically said you could get a majority in the Senate for Republicans that could last a decade, even based on future elections.
Interesting.
Which is what you want. I mean, that's the entire,
no doubt.
That's the entire goal, and the opportunity. I want to get to. I'll get to this also coming up because it shows Trump on the issues. The on the issues, the lead that he has over Biden, and you see some of I think there's one like over 40 points.
Wow.
Favoring Trump on it. Right. This is an election, as we said, that Republicans can win and Trump can win. It's also one that they can lose if they don't communicate effectively. And we played the ad that Trump put together last week, as it was edited, where he talked about why you should vote for him. And you and I looked at each other and go, well, he can do it. Yep. If he wishes to do it, he can do it, because that is absolutely, it was almost I would give it and nothing ever gets 100% from me because I'm always like, well, you could have done that a little bit or just taken this in a little direction.
Right.
But it was 95% what he needs to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he has the ability to win it. As I've said, all the issues favor the Republicans. And an abortion, you can make that 50-50, which is Democrats want it till birth and the public doesn't.
Right.
The public doesn't want it. And I've said nobody ever talks about on the pro-life side the fact that since the majority of Americans don't believe, even women, the plurality of women don't believe in abortion right up until birth, it means the debate is simply when does life begin in the womb?
Right. Yeah.
Which is what, if you're a pro-lifer, you want.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing on the chaos, Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. So just was reading this op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal. Karl Rove's column, Democrats will probably lose the Senate. And it starts off by saying the March 12 Washington Post poll for Maryland's open Senate seat shows Governor Larry Hogan with a double-digit lead over both major Democrats, 49-37 in one case, 50-36 in the other one. And he writes here, the Maryland poll is only the latest bad turn for Senate Democrats. They hold a 51-49 majority, and 43 Democrat Senate seats are up this year, counting those of independents, Bernie Sanders and Angus King, with Republicans defending only 11 seats. Democrats have no room for error. Most GOP states up this year are in deep red states. Only two Republicans could have real contest, Ted Cruz and Rick Scott of Florida. But a March 21st mayor survey said Mr. Cruz ahead 51-45, while even a higher partisan Democratic pollster had Mr. Scott up 44-41 on March 1st. If, you and I talked about, could this be a different election where Trump outperforms, as he has in some states? This is early on, but Trump outperforms many Republican candidates, and that wasn't the case back in 2020.
Right.
And so if he does that pull Ted Cruz to an easy victory? And I would say yes.
Yeah. If, if things start to continue to go well, then those where there might be a slimmer margin, I think are going to benefit from that and get a greater margin. I wish it were the case, I'm building my own unicorn here, that the Republican Party, each of these candidates were building it on their own, as well as Trump building it on his own, and that they all kind of stand alone. But that's just not the way the down ballot works. If the presidential candidate is strong, they often carry most of those down ballots with them, and with the exception of some really bad candidates, and I wouldn't put Cruz in that category.
But the poll has Cruz up 51-45, and the highly Democratic pollster in Florida had Mr. Scott up 44-41% on March 1st. As long as both men run through the tape, they should be fine.
All right. Yeah.
Democrats, on the other hand, have a lot of problems. Republican Governor Jim Justice is virtually guaranteed to take the West Virginia seat of Joe Manchin. Democrats hold two other seats in states Donald Trump won in the last two presidential elections, Montana, which Mr. Trump carried by 16 points, and Ohio. Flipping them two would result in a 52-48 GOP Senate. And they talked about, John Tester, only 2 points ahead, 44-42. He hasn't reached the 50-point mark. That is not encouraging news for a three-term incumbent. Talked about Ohio and Bernie Morano. It says Democrats grumbled Mr. Morano would be the easiest Republican to beat, or gambled. We'll find out soon if it was a smart bet in now reliably red Ohio. Republicans have reasonable chances to add seats in 3 Great Lakes states. In Pennsylvania, combat veteran and businessman David McCormick faces 3-term incumbent Democrat Bob Casey. A March 13 poll showed McCormick only slightly trailing 41% to 45%. In Wisconsin, developer and banker Errol Hovde post up against incumbent Tammy Baldwin. A March 18 survey has him down just 3 points. The gap was 8 points 3 weeks earlier. For Michigan's open seat, the likely GOP nominee is former intelligence chairman Mike Rogers. He is down. Just 2 points at this. In March here is the end of March. Since all 3 states are presidential battlegrounds, they'll be close. With Democrat money driving turnout against Mr. Trump, the GOP candidate must hold the Trump vote while winning suburbanites who would support down-ballot Republicans, but not Mr. Trump. These 3 Republicans have the profiles to do that. Finally, the GOP has Western opportunities. Nevada is now trending Republican, with Democrat registration advantage down nearly 2/3. Their registration advantage down nearly 2/3 since 2020. And they go through all that and saying this could be a great year for the Republicans. Let me see, what is it here? If GOP challengers achieve financial sufficiency and turn Democratic office holders' records into a negative, Republicans could win a Senate majority that lasts a decade. That's interesting. Some interesting analysis. Look, on the issues, as we've said, it's a landslide for Republicans. Absolute landslide.
And it is a landslide, and it's also more of an impactful landslide, I believe, because it is not, these issues are not in the abstract. They are here. They are everyday reality for every American. Inflation, the border, national security, domestic security when it comes to crime and defunding the police and how we're treating criminals and what criminals are getting away with. All of these things right now are on the forefront and in people's lives at a heightened awareness level, I think, especially. It's not just the news. As you've mentioned, a lot of times the local news is what impacts, how things are affecting, everybody locally. The local news will have that impact. But so it's, the crime in major cities, the illegal immigration situation in major cities now, thanks to, I think, Governor Abbott for a large part of that. Inflation, the cost of everything. I was just reading a story during the break about how McDonald's is noticing that a lot of the lower income customers are paring their menu choices. In other words, they're not ordering the same amount of food they used to order because they can't afford it. And that's what it comes down to, is that, because you look at the franchisees, they have to raise the prices. If they do a 10% increase, that has an impact on people's behavior and all that. We're talking McDonald's. That's okay, I'm too tired to cook dinner, or I've got to get something for lunch because I got to get back to work. And when you can't afford McDonald's, that's a problem. And these things are playing out every day. So I think it's a landslide. It's a much different kind of landslide, because it's the difference, I think, between watching a video of a landslide and actually being at the foot of a mountain when a landslide is happening politically. And we'll see if that if that plays out in November. It would shock me. We haven't even in this segment introduced the radical ideas of pro-Hamas teaching children sexualized content in school, which they're promoting on a regular basis. The First Lady is promoting it. You know, these are not abstract issues. These are things that parents and families are dealing with day in and day out. I had a family member who is younger and recently just approached me and said, "What is going on with people?" You know, you can kind of sense it, where we're all just kind of, looking at reality right now, saying, "What in the world? How much more could they dish out?"
And when I look at this election, look, we talk about the polls all the time, and we'll say, okay, the polls give an indication where the momentum is, but we don't necessarily believe that each individual poll is accurate in March of this year.
Right. We look at movement.
We look at the generalized movement of it, and as we've said before, now the media seems to be going crazy about, well, some of these polls show that Biden's up, and there's a big comeback coming back, and I think you're going to hear that. You're going to hear that a lot. The problem that they have is on every major issue that exists out there right now, Trump and the Republicans on the issues, landslide leads. I mean, unbelievable leads on the actual issues. And that's why I say it's an issue versus January 6th election. That's what it is. And I think Americans have already processed January 6th one way or another. However they've processed it.
It's priced in
already.
They've
They've priced that in already. And I do think, because we saw it in 2016, that the movement really went, and it started about 3 weeks before. The movement really started about 3 weeks before the election, where it started moving towards Trump.
Right.
Now, Trump was an unknown quantity back then. As a president, he was an unknown quantity. He's no longer an unknown quantity. People compare him to what Biden has done, and Biden's numbers are historically low. But I still think that a lot of people, independents, will make their decision. I think there's a possibility of the same thing happening again, where people say, this is just so bad, I'm sorry, I've got to vote for him. We've seen polls move. When you don't have to vote tomorrow, there is a percentage of the population that will change 6 months later, and more than 6 months.
Yeah.
But they will change 6 months later. As you get close to an election, it's like, okay, I got to make the vote here. What do I do? And the majority of time, economic numbers and economic things. And you have to realize, Eric, how many people have not gone through this? Because this inflation is even worse than the recession of 2008, 2009. Because the inflation's affected affected everybody, and for a number of years. And we're still going to be, I don't see us going below 3%. You never know, but I don't see it happening. As you got core inflation still up near 4%, and the overall number, as we stated, doesn't mean anything. What means a ton to people is inflation of the products that they buy. And the products that they buy: food, home insurance, car insurance. I did see a thing on YouTube the other day about this couple in Florida. It's just too dang expensive, homeowners insurance. So their house is paid off for. They're not carrying it. And they started this like 10 years ago, because it was $7,000 for their house insurance. So they just, instead of paying that, they saved $7,000 a year. And now they've got, 12 years later, 13 years later, whatever it is, close to $100,000. But their house is probably worth $500,000 or $600,000.
They're self-insured, but they're really only self-insured for things like repairs, not full replacement.
Not full, exactly, full replacement. Well, they did say, the land's worth more than the house.
That's the case in a lot of areas.
And so they said, but if the first 5 years, we would have been screwed over big time if a hurricane hit.
Well,
but there are people, when you think about that, because they talk to experts like, oh, geez, not insuring the asset that's the most to you. I wouldn't suggest doing that. But if you do that, if it's that desperate out there where people are saying, I paid off my mortgage and I'm not going to have insurance on it because the insurance is too expensive, you and I both know that's sitting in the back of people's minds going, the economy sucks so bad that I can't afford homeowners insurance, and it could affect this asset of mine, which is the biggest asset that I have.
Unless you've got enough money for full replacement, to fully self-insure, that's a massive risk.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, this has the potential to be a completely different kind of election based on the fact, and you had mentioned it earlier, and we've talked about this a lot. So many of the issues out there where Trump leads, and you say, why? You know, you've never seen Republicans have this big of a lead. And as you and I have explained, it's different because on all the major issues, they are no longer abstract.
Right.
They're not abstract issues. It's not, okay, hypothetically, if you vote for a Democrat, the economics of the Democrat, I believe, are better than the Republican. Mm-hmm. Well, as we know now, everything has hit reality. And by the way, I've noticed that a lot of our listeners have picked up on that because we've said the biggest challenge to Democrats is not Republicans, it's reality. We'll talk more about that coming up.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You know, we talked about identity politics yesterday. We talked about where racism still exists in this nation and that it is systemic and institutionalized, and that is in the Democratic Party. Well, yesterday, another example of that. On The View, they had podcaster and author Coleman Hughes. He is black. And he was there to promote his book, The End of Race Politics and Arguments for a Colorblind Society. Okay?
All right.
And it's where you just treat people as people. Something we've been promoting since we've been in talk radio. Mm-hmm. That's how you get rid of it. You don't pay attention to race. Race doesn't matter to you. Right. And as we've stated, it has to the left because their entire party is built on identity politics, judging people by groups. And therefore, one group is a victim, one group is an oppressor. And they wish, and they have succeeded, as we have stated, over the last few decades, of promoting the fact that we will protect the victim from the oppressor. One of the problems is they've kept increasing the pie, more slices of more victims, where then you see the victims or the leaders of the victims eventually become the oppressors, as we've seen. For example, we use Martina Navratilova as that. We've also talked about the fact that any conservative black out there has gotten labeled, will get labeled, and has been labeled by a number of names. Uncle Tom's, a tool of the conservative movement, that you're being used, that you don't have a brain of your own, which means all blacks must have the same mindset. Well, how racist is that? Well, they got into that yesterday. They were talking about, for example, Martin Luther King and listen to Sonny Huston, by the way, a descendant of slave owners. Did you see when she found that out? I'm shocked. I'm a descendant of slave owners.
Well,
And it's like, why are you shocked? It's got nothing to do with you.
you're not responsible for it.
You're not responsible for what somebody else did.
Yeah.
And it's like, but, well, as we said, part of the guilt that the Democrats have, the guilt is based on their mindset that they judge everybody by groups and not individuals.
Right.
And if you do that, well, then you're a racist. Well, you probably feel guilty about that. And therefore, you say, well, we need to have reparations. We need to have this. And you accuse the other side of always being racist because you're promoting racism.
Right.
That's how you think. It's not how other people think. Well, here's part of what went on, and listen how she goes after the author here. Here we go.
So your argument for color blindness, I think, is something that the right has co-opted. And so many in the black community, if I'm being honest with you, because I want to be, believe that you are being used as a pawn by the right and that you're a charlatan of sorts.
He's not a Republican.
So how do you...
He's never voted for a Republican.
You've said that you're a conservative.
No,
you did. You actually said that in the podcast that you did 2 weeks ago.
I said I was a conservative.
Yes, you did. So
I don't think I've been co-opted by anyone. I've only voted twice, both for Democrats. Although I'm an independent, I would vote for a Republican, probably a non-Trump Republican if they were compelling. I don't think there's any evidence I've been co-opted by anyone, and I think that that's an ad hominem tactic people use to not address really the important conversations we're having here. And I think it's better, and it would be better for everyone if we stuck to the topics rather than make it about me with no evidence that I've been co-opted.
I want to give you the opportunity to respond to
I appreciate
the criticism.
I appreciate it. There's no evidence that I've been co-opted by anyone. I have an independent podcast. I work for CNN as an analyst. I write for the Free Press. I'm independent in all of these endeavors, and no one is paying me to say what I'm saying. I'm saying it because I feel it.
I have a question, because you write that the anti-racism movement, there are a couple of people, I don't even know who they are, maybe you know.
Robin DiAngelo,
Ibram Kendi, for instance.
Okay. Well, you say that is just another form of racism, and you even say it has a lot in common with white supremacy. How can you compare those two things?
I compare
about
them because
anti-racism, you're comparing it to white supremacy.
Because they both view your race as an extremely significant part of who you are. So white supremacists, they obviously say, we all know what they say, okay? Neo-racists like Rob DiAngelo, they say that to be white is to be ignorant, for example. Well, this is a racial stereotype, and I want to call a spade and say this is not the style of anti-racism we have to be teaching our kids. We should be teaching them that your race is not a significant feature of who you are. Who you are is your character, your value, and your skin color doesn't say anything about that.
Whoa! Listen to the people cheer.
Applause. Hey, everybody. The audience at The View woke up.
This is what Republicans should be doing.
Yep.
And by the way, as you know, everybody clapped. And who did he, Mr. Coleman, Mr. Hughes, Coleman Hughes, who did he sound like? What mindset was he promoting? Something
That
you've
of
heard,
Martin Luther King Jr.
No, something you've heard here on Martin Luther King Jr., but also something you've heard here on Red Eye since we've been together.
Yeah.
And there he is on The View. And he did a great job saying, it's an ad hominem attack on me. You're attacking me instead of the philosophy that, you said, well, by the way, there are, if you look in the black community, if you look at where they stand on a lot of social issues, blacks are conservative.
Oh, yeah.
On many social issues.
Right.
So he might have said, I'm conservative on this, or I'm conservative on that, or I'm conservative on this.
Right.
And you, just like many other demographics, you have many blacks who are extremely religious.
Right.
And they hold very, like everybody else, well, not like everybody else, but like many other people, they hold conservative viewpoints. They may vote Democrat, but that's one of the things of the debate going on right now.
Well, and talking, and this is, and her premise, I believe it's been co-opted. It's been co-opted. Well, hold on a second. What are you doing if you're saying, because the left is always making it seem like that that it's quite the opposite of what you just laid out and what we've observed in our lives, but also in doing this for years, and that is that many black Americans are conservative in many ways. Now, they may vote other than conservative, but in their daily life on the issues and on their practices, they are conservative. So who's co-opting who? The left has been using this for a long, long time, the whole racism thing. And we know what bigotry, true bigotry, looks like, and it should certainly be called out. But the left has been using this as a political tactic for a long, long time. They want the civil rights era to be constant. They want people to believe, they're trying to teach it in schools, that if you're a person of color, you are a victim and will always be oppressed and always be a victim, and that if you are a white person, you are a racist and you can't change that about yourself. Well, the fact of the matter is that it's not true. It's not how we respond to each other, and we can all have cultural differences. By the way, we can have cultural differences. I think you and I talked about this, and I know I talked about it with a friend of mine when I was on the road last week. You can have cultural differences between families that are, white families and black families and black families. It may be, in fact, I know a lot of white families growing up that had cultural differences than we did. You have your own household culture, right? And so when we talk about those cultural differences, that doesn't divide us. I would argue it brings us closer together. You're going to have your bigotry. We know what bigotry looks like. We know what true bigotry looks like. But the overwhelming majority of us in our society get along every day and respect each other based on what? It's built on that respect as you approach a person, if you don't know them, whatever it may be, in a store or wherever it might be in life, at work, whatever it is. Well, until that person or you to them disrespect them or they disrespect you, which is based on, again, behavior. It's not based on anything else.
The vast majority of people base their relationship on base how they think about others based on the one-on-one relationship that they have with that individual.
Right.
That's how it works.
Right.
And that's how it's worked for me in no matter who I have dealt with, whatever demographic you belong to, I've always gotten along with everybody all the time because you treat each other as individuals.
Right.
And that's how it's done. And what I liked was Joy Behar. Well, wait a minute, but how can you say that these anti-racists, I mean, they're anti-racist, and he was beautiful. He brought up, well, the anti-racism is not anti-racism. It's racist.
It's racist.
They're calling it anti-racism, but it's racist.
Exactly.
And here's where it's racist.
Right.
All white people are ignorant.
I love the fact that he did that on The View.
Yeah, and and you could tell they couldn't respond.
They don't have
a response. It had to destroy them when the audience is like, yay!
Exactly. Oh no, that's
that
I thought to myself.
Part.
But that's because that was the perfect response to that, and it's also a double kick or punch in the gut to the left when they hear that their audience responds to something that is very basic. You know why the audience clapped? Because it's we agree. Now, the audience also sometimes claps at The View, and they agree with them on other things that we don't agree with. We get that. But that was a very basic point that he made. Coleman made a very basic point, an observation that is, it's like observational humor that, it's funny because it's true. The point, what resonated to that audience to the point of applause, because it's true, because they agree, that's what they experience, and that's what they believe. We should be interacting with each other based on the people that we are, and it is not about skin color.
That's been interesting this week because Bill Maher, and that really became, news after the weekend. But last Friday when he brought it up about identity politics, and then Mr. Hughes on the View, and Bill Maher is going through the number of black leaders out there that have stated, no, we need to eliminate race. We need to get rid of it. That's I have been saying that for 34 years and 7 months. I was saying it beforehand, but on talk radio, 34 years and 7 months.
It's how we grew up.
Well, because that's what you do. That's what I've always done. You deal with people as individuals, one-on-one. That's how you judge them. You don't judge people by groups. And the Democratic Party can't stop being racist. They've got to have and judge people by groups and not individuals.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, too. It's a form of virtue signaling. I care more because I want to end racism, and I'm just going to take this, something that doesn't really exist, something that is, you want to talk about co-opted from the left, it's this idea of racism and that it's everywhere, and it's the worst it's ever been.
Which is false.
And you observe, again, in our everyday life. I met a young man, it was a couple of years ago, but I've done business with him a couple of times since. And he moved here from Louisiana, and he said, I was really surprised. He's black. He says, I was really surprised how diverse Texas was, the Dallas area especially. He said, now my mom lives in Houston. And he said, I had no idea. I lived in Louisiana all my life. He said, I had no idea. And when I moved here, it was like, wow. Like, I grew up here. And I'm an Air Force brat. But I didn't see, I wasn't looking for and insisting on diversity. It was just there. It was, right. It was just, you had friends from all over, different ethnicities and cultures. They were friends. They were family. You and I both have a very diverse family, and I'm not trying to be a champion for anything except for good, decent behavior, and I start with myself on that.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. I think that interview that they did with Coleman Hughes, the author of his book, saying we need to stop talking about race. We need to start dealing with people as individuals. That's how you do it.
Right.
And again, how they tried to make it basically. Sonny Huston, that basically you're a tool. And I love us. There are blacks out there that believe do you believe it? Because I bring this up because I want to be honest with you. Well, just tell them that's your opinion.
Right.
Don't sit there and say some.
Yeah, right.
If you're going to, that's what you believe, and you just don't have the guts to say it because this guy can argue with you. And this is why, by the way, just an example of why MSNBC doesn't want anybody who can might be able to articulate any idea. I'm not saying Ronna McDaniel could.
Right.
But the fact is, you see, this author went on there and blew the View right out of the water.
Right.
Very, very calm, saying, well, no, anti-racism is racism. When you come out and say all whites are ignorant, that's a racist comment. They can't argue it.
Right.
I'm talking about you deal with people one-on-one. You worry about their character, how they treat you with respect. Things like, and the audience just starts cheering, yay!
Yeah.
And you can see nobody is smiling on that panel.
Right.
They don't want to hear it.
No.
But you understand that it's never been easier to defend conservative ideas and be a non-racist.
Right.
And understand that the other side is the side that wishes to put people, and why do you wish to put people into groups? You only want to do that for political power, because we all know it's wrong. The liberal audience of The View, the audience going to The View is not conservative.
No.
And they agreed with the idea, get rid of race.
Right.
Deal with people as individuals. That should be the goal. The View didn't. The audience did. Understand that these people want power, just like it's no different than the KKK or the white Aryan nations.
Right.
These people want power by dividing people. You saw it with the Georgia election law when Biden was as racist as you could be, comparing a election integrity law and things that the vast majority of all people, irrespective of their demographics, wanted. The polls show it. And they came out and said it's basically this election integrity law is Jim Crow on steroids. They moved the All-Star game away.
Yep.
Hurt a ton of black businesses in Atlanta. And now nobody cares about the law because it's no big deal anymore, yet because they couldn't use it to their political advantage. Biden was no better that day than any leader of the white Aryan nations or the KKK by attempting to divide people by the color of their skin, by telling a huge racial lie.
Instilling fear in people's hearts. That's what they do.
Right. Based on a lie.
And that's exactly what white supremacists do.
Yep.
And there's no way around that. There's no way around it. They use it and have used it for years as a tactic, and it's about time it's over.
Yep. And like I said, you and I, one day we had that epiphany. It was like, oh, now we understand why they call us racist for any opinion we have, because they believe.
It's how they think.
That's how they think.
Yep,
and so they
it's
think
how they
everybody
think.
else thinks that way.
Yep, it's how they think.
Right. And so, yeah, we'll go back to the summer 2020 when we said it.
Yep.
Well, you know, racism is systemic and institutionalized in this country. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you guys agree, because conservatives don't. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Where it's institutionalized and systemic is inside the Democratic Party, and they've mainstreamed it.
Yep.
Tell us where we're wrong. 866-90-RED-EYE.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And so when we look at that when we look at Coleman Hughes, the author of the book, saying, look, we need to forget about race. We need to treat people as individuals. And how the View was upset about it. And then how the crowd, or the audience, whatever, how they cheered for him. Remember, that liberal audience. This is how easy it is for anyone to win the argument on race and the identity politics and racism of the Democratic Party. When you can do that in a matter of 2 minutes, get the audience of the View cheering that we shouldn't be focusing on race, we should be focusing on individuals, and race needs to be gone, and you don't hear Republicans talking about it, there is a problem there.
Well, it makes you wonder, Coleman Hughes talks about writing at the Free Press, and of course we think of, Barry Weiss. It's because as soon as he said that, I thought, oh, Barry Weiss, right? And and the common thread there being, a couple of journalists who look at things for the way that they are, as opposed to the liberal activist journalist mindset, which is, I'm going to ignore the facts and I'm going to basically shape my own narrative through my work. And that's something that we greatly appreciate. And I think to myself, because we wonder, you and I wonder, and it's hard to gauge. Look, we know that Scott Rasmussen's folks listen on, and on a regular basis, and we greatly appreciate that. We've had Scott on, and we would love to have him spend a gazillion dollars on the polls that we want to get done. But they're impossible polls, and it would cost us a gazillion dollars. To look at the mindset of how many people are changing in that way. And for me, that poll would have to be very specific in that, okay, people like Barry Weiss and now, Coleman Hughes, where we can say, look, they're
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher
said it.
These are individuals, I think Michael Rappaport, the actor, these are individuals who have espoused liberal viewpoints in the past. And you could say, in fact, we know for a fact that at least some of them were part of building this whole thing. But now I've looked at it and said, whoa, what is going on? And they've discovered reality. And reality is hitting, we talk about the issues and delivering reality on a daily basis. And we're no longer in the abstract on the issues. But the issues of not just today. Think about this. With Barry Weiss, with Bill Maher, with these individuals, it's also those issues that have been building that, they were, and again, I don't want to speak for Barry Weiss here, but we know we've covered enough of and played enough of Bill Maher over the years to know that he was part of building that narrative.
Yeah, he was.
And every once in a while still steps back into the wrong narrative. However, it appears that they are discovering something of where it all came from, not just the snapshot of today. It's important for them to understand how we got here, and it appears that we have reached that point, at least with these individuals. And my question would be, how many Americans, how many rank-and-file voters of any party or following or ideology are now looking at that going, yeah, we're on the same page.
Well, when you have, you've got Mr. Hughes, who was on The View. You have the quote that Bill Maher played from the actor. I got mine blank here. Morgan Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Who said, I don't want you to call me a black man.
Right.
I'm not going to call you a white man.
Right.
Call me my name.
Mm-hmm.
Don't refer to me. I still, because I understand that it's not me that I'm speaking to, but it's others out there who, for example, when I set up what would happen on The View, and I said, Mr. Hughes is a black man. And I said that because I knew The View would react to his skin color. I am not reacting to his skin color.
Right.
I have always believed, and this was, I think instilled to me just by the way I saw my parents and then the relationships that I had. I want to be completely autonomous from anybody else.
Yeah.
I'm autonomous. You and I agree on basically the same things, but we're autonomous of each other.
Mm-hmm.
We may have the same mindset, and we think one of the things that you and I have talked about in the past, when we don't spend a lot of time on it, but we'll go, how did this thing work out? Why do we have chemistry? And it's like, maybe we sort of connect the dots the same. Our minds sort of work in the same way, and that's, if you work in the same way, many times you come to the same, you come to the same conclusions.
Right,
but
right, yeah.
I have always pushed. Now, I come from a very, very multiracial family. Mm-hmm. Irish, Jamaican, Colombian.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have discussions, the discussions with my nephew, when I have the discussion with my great nephew, because it's like, well, I'm not black, I'm mixed, whatever. And I'm like, you're not any of that.
You're you.
Get rid of that. You're you. And if anybody has a hang up, because they talk about the fact that the discrimination,
mm-hmm.
If you're mixed, there's discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not really black. Well, you're not really white. You're not really black. And young kids, can use that as ammo against you, to put you down in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, both my nephew and my great nephew at times have mentioned that to me. And it's like, don't pay attention to that. I'm not white. You're not black. You're not white. You're you. Mm-hmm. You're an individual. You're a mind and a soul. That's what you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're an individual. Autonomy is everything.
Which is also to say, and we preach to the young people in our family, your nephew, great nephew, and your other great nieces and nephews are like your children, and
yes.
I have children and grandchildren, and, we preach to them that it also means that because of that autonomy, you also own your behavior.
Yes.
Those are things that, it is, you are not to be judged one way or the other, except for by your behavior, by your own moral character.
So, and that's what I'm big on. And I sense, if you're, I sense that, and I've never talked to Barry Weiss. It would be interesting to talk to her, because when she came out and said, well, wow, I could vote for Trump now, and how anti-Trump she was.
Right. Yeah.
And you see her, and you see the free press, and what you see there is trying to build autonomy from everything else. We're going to build autonomy. We'll call it the free press because we're going to hire good people and let you go. Sort of like National Review does the same thing. Mm-hmm. You don't get whatever the writers will say it. Yeah, they told us no. Write whatever you want. We know that you're. It's like our company. We work for a major company. I have no idea what politics my management has. Mm-hmm. They basically have said, and this is where people, we get criticized. Well, no, you guys get the talking points, and it's the military-industrial complex that, is telling you guys what to do, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. No. They actually came and said, they actually come to you and say, all right, go on the air and do a show.
By the way, that says a lot about the bosses that you and I have had over the years, 27 years for me, at the same under the same roof, and you're closing in on that. And we've had, and it says a lot about those bosses that we don't know what, everything that they feel politically. Now, there are a couple of them have made comments here and there, but it still doesn't tell you everything about that. And the reason I say that that's a good thing is because that's the way it should be. It's about the job, and that's the role that they're in that moment. They're not on the air espousing their views. We are, and they know what the job is, what our job is, what their job is, and it's been, I think, with each of them has been a very good relationship.
But as I said, when they say, well, the entire thing's run by the media industrial complex, really the vast majority of talk radio, the conservative talk radio and talk radio hosts are completely independent of any management that they work for.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it, because that's the autonomy that you want and crave. And I've always wanted that, to the degree of the autonomy that, and we've gotten bashed by Republicans. Well, you guys aren't following what the Republican Party says or what Trump says or what Bush says. Yeah, because that's not where I stand on the issue. And I'm not going to agree on an issue because I'm supposed to belong to the same tribe with a label.
Well,
I'm not going to do that either.
I don't adhere. It's not about me adhering to them. It's about whether they adhere to me.
Yeah, we said that. Remember when?
And it should be that way with every voter.
Remember when we would get the calls? You guys haven't endorsed the Tea Party. We go, well, that's because that's the wrong premise. It's, does the Tea Party endorse what I think?
Right. Are they out there representing me?
Yeah. Since when did I have to agree with a particular group because of their label?
That's how the left operates. The left has operatives out there. You need to follow the mantra. You need to follow the talking points. You need to follow the mission statement. You need to follow the narrative. Conservatives shouldn't ever be of that mindset.
But you know why? Because across the board, whether it's you wanting your autonomy as an individual or professionally in the media, you want it because if you get it, you don't lie.
Exactly.
Well, don't
Mr.
lie.
Hughes, they asked him about, she accused him of being on his podcast and saying he was a conservative, and he said, I don't remember saying that. He said, but I have said I will vote for a non-Trump Republican, whereas Barry Weiss would consider and has said, and he the point is he works with Barry Weiss over at the Free Press. That's an organization she started, a news organization she started. And so,
and by the way, just so people know, Barry Weiss was one of the Twitter Files people.
Yes,
just so people know, she's one
and a former liberal a journalist and
for the New York Times
for the longest time, and so Mr. Hughes doesn't have to agree with Barry Weiss, even though they both write for the free press. They kind of have the same approach. He may not support a Trump type Republican or Trump himself, but he understands the ideas.
Yeah.
And he's
bringing out an idea that puts it right in the face of the left,
and they hate that. They can't argue that. They can't debate that. This totally deconstructs everything they've been preaching for such a long time, and the applause from the audience says it all. From a liberal audience, at The View.
That's
he
how
was able to render that applause.
Republicans, you need to pay attention to that and understand you don't have to defend your position on race. You go after them for their racism.
Exactly.
Don't defend, attack.
Right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A couple of stories out there. They will tell you about the Christian couple suing Washington State for denying them a foster care license because if they they've said, we will not, be involved in the whole radical transgender movement.
Right.
You're not going to give us a child and say that we have to call them basically the sex that they are not. So we're going to federal court over there. Or we're going to go to state court first, and then I'm assuming federal court. But that story coming up. Plus, I just love this one. If no one is above the law, like the Democrats say consistently, that means the Trump DOJ must indict Joe Biden if Trump wins.
Yeah, right.
Based on what the Democrats are saying, it is. It's Rich Lowry's column, the other National Review. It's just like, I don't think it's as good as David Harzenni's in Federalist.com, though, about Jen Psaki lying about lying. She's talking about, well, we're about truth versus lies. She goes, where the hell is she coming from?
What in the holy hell?
Yeah, what was that? What in the holy hell is she talking about? That was wonderful. It's just like, and here's a question. Does she know she's lying?
Oh, yes. And she knows she gets away with it in that house,
when you were gone last week, I did a whole segment on lying, about these people that are in politics that lie. Doesn't their because as well as I do, if you got on the air and lied every day about, not your opinion, because your opinion's your opinion, but your opinion is based on something that's a lie that didn't happen.
Right.
My family and my friends would be in my face.
I was telling Steven Tyler that the other night. We went out for his birthday dinner. And I told him.
But does that happen on the left? Do people tell you, look, you got to stop lying. You're bringing down the family name.
No, I don't think they care.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, before we get anywhere, we never got a chance to get to this the other night because of the breaking news of the bridge collapse. We know, Joe Biden made the campaign pledge that he would get rid of all fossil fuels. We know that's his goal.
Right.
We know that was the goal of Obama. And what we always found interesting is while the only thing they really can control is number one, federal lands, and number two, federal regulations that would make it impossible to be able to, frack, drill, whatever, mine. But they haven't succeeded again. The interesting thing about Obama, though, while he was always promoting the fact that he was attempting to get rid of fossil fuels, that when Trump became president, and this is pre-COVID, and boom, yeah, it was definitely pre-COVID because it would be like 2017 or early 2018, I think it was maybe.
Yeah, I think
early 2018.
It was roughly
a year.
That he was out of office. So
yeah,
I think it was spring of 2018, somewhere around there.
And so, it was hilarious because Obama, just like Biden, was trying to get rid of it.
Right.
He was like, no, we don't want to do it. Trying to get rid of, drilling anywhere we can. And so Trump gets into office, and Trump's like, look at all the oil that we're producing. And Biden comes on and says, wait a minute, that happened when I was president. It's like, well, wait a minute, you're supposed to be against it. So now Obama is taking responsibility for climate change?
Right.
See, the left never picked up on that, by the way.
No, we did. We hammered it. But...
And so Biden, as we know, his goal is to get rid of fossil fuels. Well, the U.S. Energy Information Administration said that in January, United States domestic production of crude oil for September of last year set a new all-time high of 13,247,000 barrels per day. That fact probably deserved more notice than it received, given that it was the most oil any nation on earth has ever managed to produce in a single month.
Yeah, wow.
December, the most current month for which full data is available, it is likely November's all-time record of 13,319,000 barrels per day has been exceeded at least once again during the first quarter of 2024 as producers find ways to wring more production out of each wellbore. The ability to increase per well performance through the application of more effective processes and advancing technologies has been crucial to the ability to raise overall production, given that the upward curve has continued even in the face of an active rig count that has dropped over 25% in the past 15 months. That is a feat the U.S. industry has never achieved in any other period in modern times. The September 2023 record took place exactly 15 years after American crude oil production had hit a production level not seen since 1943, when the manpower and resource requirements for fighting World War II slowed the business to a crawl. The U.S., listen to this here, the U.S. churned out only 3.9 million barrels per day in September of 2008. A level the state of Texas alone exceeded by almost 2 million barrels per day 15 years later.
Wow.
Those numbers are stunning, and they are coming in the face of a President Joe Biden and an administration that continues to invoke federal regulations and executive orders designed to impede the industry's ability to grow. So other than advancing technology and human ingenuity, how do we account for the ongoing expansion of America's energy might? It can be explained through the convergence of several key factors. Production shale formations happen to lie beneath regions in which the federal government owns little or no land. Two of the most prolific regions, the Eagle Ford and Permian Basin, lie all or mostly in Texas, where the feds own virtually no land at all outside of military bases, and Lake Falcon, which is fed by the Rio Grande River on the border with Mexico. This means that the Texas state government exercises virtually all operational regulatory authority related to oil and gas operations in the state. The prolific Bakken shale is mainly contained in North Dakota and the DJ Basin in central Colorado, where the feds own only a relatively small percentage of the land. Second, America is fortunate in its law. Simply put, no U.S. president has much ability to regulate the domestic industry's operations unless they take place on lands owned by the federal government. As a result, the Biden administration, like the Obama administration before it, has been left trying to impede the industry at the margins using such ploys as slow plane approvals for interstate pipelines and the recent halt in permitting for the new LNG export facilities. The EPA is also trying to slow it down with a multitude of new regulations on methane and automobile emissions. Third, a timely law signed by Obama. He probably didn't really realize it at the time, but former President Barack Obama essentially issued a full speed ahead order in December of 2015 when he signed the spending bill into law that contained language repealing the 1975 ban on exports of U.S. crude oil. The repeal came at a time when some producers were finding it difficult to find space in any domestic oil refinery to process the light sweet grade of oil being produced from U.S. shale, since most of the refineries were equipped to refine heavy grades of crude coming from overseas. The new ability to export crude for refining overseas basically gave the green light, for further expansion of U.S. shale regions. So, yeah, you notice that this is the thing about Biden. He can't promote that.
No.
He can't promote. He'll talk about oil prices, or he'll talk about gasoline prices being low. He cannot talk about it. Even Obama couldn't talk about it until he was out of office.
Well, and there's the thing is that, and we talked about it when he was trying to promote, when Biden tries to promote low gasoline prices, we said, well, look, if you're an activist on the left, you should be angry about that. You should want gasoline prices to be high. Certainly you want them to be high because you want EVs. You want the EV mandate to stay on target. You don't want gasoline. Gasoline's bad. It's expensive. It should be expensive. Under my plan of cap and trade, electricity rates will necessarily skyrocket.
We've seen that, especially in California. Electricity is twice the national average.
Yep.
Texas below the national average. What I just paid, per kilowatt hour is below it. Mm-hmm. And Texas still has a problem with its grids that we voted on last November. Oh, jeez. Mm-hmm. To have basically more natural gas plants in reserve. So if Frizola ever happens again, we're ready to ramp those things up, which is ridiculous because now we have to subsidize all forms of energy when we don't need to subsidize any form of energy.
Right.
By the way, I think Rich Lowry wrote a couple of columns, one on that I just mentioned before that we'll get to here in a little bit. No one is above the law. That's what the Democrats are saying. That means the Trump DOJ must indict Joe Biden by the Democrat standard. He also wrote a whole column on automobiles and said, the entire infrastructure of gas stations, no subsidies were needed. And basically going back to the fact that the government is actually mandating to the American public that the product that you buy right now that is more efficient and productive than anything else that we've ever driven in our lives be replaced with something that has to be subsidized by the federal government that will cost you an arm and a leg and is not nearly as productive or efficient as a gasoline engine.
Right.
And it's like, that's what they believe. But California is feeling it first. Electric vehicles, remember, it was just 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Well, it's going to be great because electricity prices are so low, blah, 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 blah. Well, with what they want to do to the grid, electricity prices are going up everywhere.
Yep.
And therefore, it's become more expensive to charge your car. And if gasoline prices are low, that's why the left wants to say to Biden, shut up, stop talking about gasoline prices being low. We need gasoline prices to be high so people will buy electric vehicles. And now we really need it because now to charge your car with electricity in many states is more expensive than putting gasoline in it.
Yep. And look, we talk about that. There wasn't a need for building the infrastructure for gas stations, and because the private sector saw the opportunity. What's happening with the private sector when it comes to EVs? The makers of the EVs are saying, stop, we can't do this.
Yep.
We're dying here. Because what they see is, well, the simple math, their own books. They see that there's no natural demand. When there's a natural demand, we're willing to pay a little bit more. Hey, we want one of those. Hey, we want one of those. Hey, we want one of those. And we're all racing to get it in large masses. That's not happening. And it's not happening for a reason, a number of reasons. And when you look at the entire layout of all of this, you think to yourself, all right, well, wait a minute. Why would we be going to a less efficient grid, a less efficient form of energy, a less efficient car? All of these things, this is the first time in history we've ever done this.
Yep.
We were burning whale blubber or whale oil for, a while until some guy poked a hole in the ground in Pennsylvania.
And said kerosene.
There you go. Check this out. And that demand is there. That demand was there from the beginning. We were willing to do that. Well, what it requires now what it would require if these mandates were to hold, we've never been able to accomplish with both the raw materials and the building of the infrastructure to power this equipment, the EVs and all of this. With all of that in play, it's impossible. It can't happen. We've never been able to do that and ramp it up to that level. When you're in office, you can't do that math. You have no idea how it all works, and you don't care. You're spending somebody else's money. Gavin Newsom's not worried about it. He's not going to be the governor in 2035 of California. He's likely not going to be president either, according to at least if the latest polls are any indication. Joe Biden, the same thing. He's not going to be around to see all of this. You can just throw these mandates out for the future and then walk away from them and let the world burn. Well, we can't afford that. The private sector is screaming, we can't do it. When the private sector sees the opportunity to make a dime, that's when you know it's right. And not a dime off of the government, by the way, an actual dime of profit. That's when you know it's right. That's where we're at the door saying, we want those, we want those, we want those. When we're all lined up.
Yeah, there's been no reason the last decade to subsidize smartphones, is there?
Nope. No, we line up. We're willing to pay. Oh, you mean it's only $1,800 for the new one? Okay, give me two. I mean, it's crazy.
I know.
But we do it.
866-98-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. A supporting document is a document generated or received by a motor carrier in the normal course of business that can be used by law enforcement to verify a driver's logs. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, including receipts for meals, lodging, and fuel, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier assigned identification number or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The funniest headline I read all day. This came from Fox. You ready?
Okay.
The Biden campaign seeks to pin basement campaign reputation on Trump.
Read that again. I'm not sure I heard it right.
The Biden campaign seeks to pin the basement campaign reputation on Trump. That Trump is staying in his basement and is not out campaigning.
Okay. They want you to believe that Trump is hiding.
Yes.
Well, even without, of course, it being a total 180. The pot and the whole kettle thing. Anyone who would imply that Donald Trump, the guy who puts his name on everything he owns, would be in hiding or is in hiding is beyond stupid.
Here's what they said. Joe Biden has hit 8 swing states in 18 days, all while being POTUS. Donald Trump has golfed a lot while truth socialing really hard. Campaigning by the numbers, Biden visited 8 battleground states in 18 days. Now it's 18 days. Trump won just one battleground state, the campaign staffer David Wessel added.
Well, it sounds like somebody is desperate to improve their polling numbers. I'll let the audience decide which one would be. We always say campaign like you're 20 points behind, and Joe Biden may actually at some point be 20 points behind if it keeps going this direction.
In a press release last week, the Biden campaign slammed Trump, claiming, "Broke Don hides in basement."
Broke Don. And then the next day, $3.4 billion overnight. Oh, and look at the stock price. It went up. Now it's $4.2 billion. Oh, my gosh, they just can't win. It keeps coming back. Gary, I knew what a boomerang was when I was a kid, and I knew that I never wanted to own one. Why? I was horrible at catching things. I don't want to throw something that's going to come back at me that I can't catch. Yet they keep throwing boomerangs politically, and I don't know why.
Music reviewers and sometimes political commentators, Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, hey, what's going on in Europe? This is really interesting.
What is going on in Europe?
Well, we saw that when it comes to transgender operations and hormones and all that. Mm-hmm. We talked about where the NHS is moving away from that. And
right.
The first thing you and I said, well, is it because of the standard, the morality of it, or do they just say, we can't afford this?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they claim it's because it is immoral to do what they're doing. Well, then you see here in France, the practice of sexually transitioning children will be remembered as one of the greatest ethical scandals in the history of medicine, a report commissioned by French senators has stated. The landmark report, produced at the behest of the French Senate, found that the medical industry embarked upon the practice of giving children life-altering transgender treatments with little evidence of its effectiveness while ignoring the side effects. Duh!
Yeah.
The report found that while parents were also pressured by doctors to put their children on puberty-blocking drugs to prevent suicide, there is little proof that this course of action has any better outcomes for the child. Meanwhile, there was a prevalence of depression and other mental illnesses among children seeking to change their gender. The report found that 70% of those seeking gender reassignment had anxiety, depressive disorders, and 30% had previously suffered some form of trauma, typically sexual abuse. Most disturbingly, 30% of children seeking to change their gender were found to have been autistic, although they were often undiagnosed. The evidence of the safety of prescribing puberty blockers to children was also based on very fragile basis, the report noted. By the way, as we've talked about, what's going to get rid of all of this stuff? Lawsuits. Yep, because if you talk about medical butchery, that has been endorsed by some doctors with no basis based on making a person's life better, there you go. And doing it to children.
Yep.
And forcing parents to agree to do it.
Right. Under the threat of taking those children away from them if they don't allow it.
A couple has filed a lawsuit against Washington state officials accused of denying their foster care renewal license because they will not abide by gender ideology rules that clash with their Christian faith. Shane and Jennifer DeGrosse were on Fox yesterday and said they went through the relicensing process, found the new regulations and rules not present in previous years.
Wow.
According to his wife, one of those rules required the couple to adhere to specific policies regarding gender ideology. It's disheartening and really unfortunate when the state puts their ideology above the needs of kids. Well, we've seen this now. Europe, France, and Great Britain are really leading the way of getting rid of the insanity that the entire Democratic Party on the federal level supports.
Yeah, right.
We have seen that. Then, DEI. Editorial board, Wall Street Journal. The lesson in DEI failure from Britain. Diversity, equity, and inclusion costs billions and doesn't do anything. Memo to companies, go ahead and cancel your DEI programs. That's more or less the message of a recent report commissioned by the UK government, finding that diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace isn't all it's cracked up to be. No blanks, Sherlock. The report presented to Business and Trade Secretary Kemi Badenoch by an independent panel found there is little evidence DEI efforts such as mandatory anti-bias training and corporate policy overhauls have any positive effect on corporate culture. Casualty between interventions and outcomes is often near impossible to discern, even if positive correlations should be taken seriously, the authors write. Definitive claims of what works can be misleading or inconclusive. Results in one context cannot necessarily be replicated in another, as workplaces are complex social environments with countless variables. It's hard to say what DEI even means. The terms diversity, inclusion, and other associated terminology are conceptually ambiguous, rapidly evolving, and often conflated, the authors note. They point out that while the fad is to focus on diversity along racial, sex, and other visible lines, the visibly diverse organization is not necessarily meaningfully heterogeneous. excuse me. Viewpoint diversity may be more important for a thriving company. Ooh. Despite the lack of results, DEI has become a huge and expensive business. U.S. companies spend $8 billion a year on DEI training. Their British report notes, and in 5 years to 2020, the number of people with the job title of head of diversity more than doubled. On the professional networking site LinkedIn, UK taxpayers pay over $555 million a year on 10,000 government jobs relating to DEI. A negative twist is that the UK companies face growing risks of having to pay again for DEI as the legal backlash gathers momentum. Several employment law cases have found that employers, including the government, violated British protections on freedom of belief by punishing employees who dissented from DEI, the DEI orthodoxy on race and transgenderism. This is no way to run a company, a government, or an economy on either side of the Atlantic. Companies profit from diverse and inclusive workplaces, but that's often the opposite of what DEI programs produce. Kudos to the British for starting to rethink this divisive, politically motivated scheme. And that's what DEI does. I don't care what company does DEI. It has the opposite effect on employees.
Oh, I think it does. I think it's what you're doing is you're instilling division inside the workplace, and you're doing it officially. Why you would want to do that is beyond me.
And any company doing the DEI, watch out for the lawsuits.
They'll be lined up. They're already lined up. Yep. You already see it. And the big one that makes the news will be the one that triggers the rest of them to either settle quickly and change to come about. Or that's usually the way it works. There's one lawsuit in any kind of setting like this, and it's going to happen fairly quickly. We'll see it over the next couple of years.
Oh, yeah, you and I, we've seen a lot of the questions and things on a number of DEI programs in a number of industries out there, and some of it's absolutely blatantly racist.
Yeah,
all of it's almost all of it is stereotyping.
I don't know why you would want to treat your employees like that. I don't. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Nope.
And to impose that kind of division in your own workplace, in your own company, tell me how that boosts morale when you're dividing.
No idea.
Yeah.
I don't think they even know. But it's lawsuits.
Well, no, it became because it became something, and then all of a sudden everyone is like, "Oh, it's the new thing. Grab onto it." Does it really make sense? Does it really make sense? Because when we talk about discrimination is real, and there are laws against discrimination. When we talk about DEI, well, as is pointed out here, well, it's often, what does it mean? The definitions are ambiguous. The words are ambiguous. Well, here's what you should be doing. Here's what you should be doing. Well, hold on a second. Are you talking about company policy? Because then when it starts shaping company policy, now the question is, well, hold on. Are we talking about getting the most productive people for the job? Are we getting the most qualified individuals for the job?
And then the discrimination and the lawsuits, that's where they'll start hitting.
Oh, man, yeah.
You start, and that's a great point. You start extrapolating DEI in companies to company policy.
Oh, you've got a problem.
Major lawsuits.
Now you've got
major lawsuits.
That's what will end it.
Yep.
That's what will end it. Because it will go up against what what we've basically decided up to this point as a society, because it shows you that it's blatant discrimination. It discriminates.
Well,
it
makes us, you and I've seen it on the number of tests out there, the number of test training, whatever it's called. We've seen it. What was it? What was the one that we were looking at about a year ago? I can't remember what it was. It was something that was saying that Oh, I know what it was. It was privilege that the person who goes to the
college,
the college,
right, yeah.
and got a scholarship and was able to get into an Ivy League school or something like this. They got privilege, and so that's the privilege, and they will get the job if it's between them and somebody who went to a college and had to work another job to go to college, and they didn't get the internship because they were working, that companies will favor that one, the one that went and got the scholarship to the bigger college over the other one. And I said, I wouldn't.
I don't make that assumption.
You've just labeled that companies think a particular way, and they don't think a particular way. They think in a bunch of different ways.
And the examples that you gave were the results of how they got there. You didn't do the math, and we grew up in the old era before Common Core math. Show your work, right? And they don't show the work when they have this approach. Well, this person got here, and it's not fair because another person is over here. Well, wait a minute. How did they get that scholarship?
Well,
what did that student do? And you're applying that to all based on what? Are you applying it based on their ethnicity or their social status or their income, their family's income status?
Well, it was really interesting because I remember when my sister got out of college, she graduated from college. My sister was a gymnast, and she was on the U.S. Gymnastics team for a while and did very well. But when she graduated from college and went into basically a computer job, and they interviewed her, the first thing they said? Normally we wouldn't hire you because you have no work experience while you were going to college. But we see why. You're on the U.S. Gymnastics team.
Discipline.
You got the job.
Discipline.
But they were looking for people that worked during college. And so when you and I remember seeing that question on one company's DEI training, we went, well, they're making assumptions that people look at something a certain way, and they're completely wrong. In fact, it's the opposite way that we look at things.
And you're training people to not make judgments while you're making a judgment
in
order to make the point.
Right. And they don't see it.
They don't see it. They will after lawsuits.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So whether you're talking the radical transgender movement, whether you're talking DEI, whether you're talking, you saw the story about BlackRock yesterday, didn't you? Mississippi hits BlackRock with cease and desist, threatens massive fine over their ESG policies. Investment companies will not push their political agenda on the people of Mississippi. The state of Mississippi has issued a cease and desist order to trillion-dollar asset manager BlackRock, alleging the firm has committed fraud by misleading investors through its climate policies. We said this about ESG.
Yep.
You're going to get sued.
Yep. It's only a matter of time.
Yep. Later on Tuesday, the Mississippi Secretary of State delivered the order and notice of intent to impose an administrative penalty, which could amount to the first-of-its-kind multi-million-dollar fine against BlackRock, an action targeting the so-called environmental, social, and governance investing. Watson claims BlackRock has repeatedly misled Mississippi investors pertaining to its broader ESG agenda. Investment companies will not push their political agenda on the people of Mississippi, especially through fraudulent and deceptive means. All citizens should have the opportunity to make informed and educated decisions when investing their hard-earned money. If not, our office will hold these bad actors accountable. We warn those companies, the ESG investors, you're going to get hit. You can't do that.
Right. And here we are.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.